You know, there's this quote from Napoleon Bonaparte that makes a lot of people angry the moment they hear it. He once said, "Women are nothing but machines for producing children." Now, on the surface, it sounds outrageous, cold, dehumanizing. But before you get ready to throw tomatoes at the screen, think about the man who said it. This wasn't some random guy at the bar. This was Napoleon, one of the most ambitious, dominant, and powerful figures in history. A man who reshaped nations and rewrote the political map of Europe. And that's the thing. When you start looking closer at men like him, men of huge ambition, you start to notice a pattern. Greatness always comes with a price tag. And the first thing to get sacrificed? Presence? Time? The soft, constant emotional availability most people expect in a relationship. Because a man chasing something bigger than himself, whether it's an empire, a vision, or a mission, he isn't just busy. He's consumed. Consumed by strategy, by battles, by the relentless pursuit of what he believes is his destiny. And when you're living at that intensity, there's little room for emotional maintenance. It's for endless reassurance for being tamed. Napoleon knew this, not just as a ruler, but as a lover. If you've ever read his letters to Josephine, you'll see a side of him that's surprising, passionate, desperate, almost pathetic at times. He loved her deeply. But while he was off building an empire, she was entertaining other men. The betrayal hit him hard. It made him realize something. Not all women desire a man's greatness. Some fear it. Because greatness doesn't submit. It doesn't sit quietly in a home. It doesn't bend to a routine. Greatness is unstable, demanding, unpredictable. And for many women, that's not love. It's a threat. So what happens? Many reach for something else. Someone else. Someone more manageable. The safe choice. A mediocre man. A mediocre man doesn't ask hard questions. He doesn't fight great battles. He's not chasing a legacy. He's soft, available, and most importantly, present. His identity revolves around her, not around a mission. And that's what makes him appealing, not because of what he is, but because of what he isn't. He isn't dangerous. He isn't consumed by a vision. He isn't willing to sacrifice comfort today for something that might only exist years down the road. Napoleon saw this dynamic crystal clear. That's why, when he made that infamous statement about women being machines for producing children, it wasn't dripping with hatred. It was spoken from cold, imperial calculation. He reduced women to their biological function because, in his eyes, most didn't rise beyond it. Now, whether you agree with him or not isn't the point. The point is he stopped expecting women to understand the storms that live inside a man who refuses to live small. He wasn't trying to win affection anymore. He wasn't writing love poems to get approval. He was chasing truth, brutal truth, even when it hurt. And here's the truth he saw over and over. The higher a man rises, the more alone he becomes. Not because he's choosing solitude, but because comfort, warmth, and emotional dependency can't follow him into the fire of greatness. And if you look around today, not much has changed. We live in a world that pretends to celebrate excellence, but only when it's entertaining, when it's beautiful, when it doesn't disrupt the comfort of the crowd. Because a man with real depth, real power, real vision, he scares people, especially in relationships. Napoleon knew this firsthand. Here was a man who could command armies like chess pieces, a master of momentum. And yet, in love, he found himself begging Josephine not to betray him. She did anyway. Why? Because power doesn't seduce the heart the same way predictability does. Power can win wars, but it rarely wins emotional loyalty. Even women surrounded by greatness often choose companionship over conquest. And you might think, well, that was then. Surely it's different now. But is it? The modern man believes that if he just works harder, becomes more successful, levels up, he'll finally be loved. Napoleon would have laughed at that, because he knew the bitter truth. The more exceptional you become, the less lovable you appear to people who crave stability over struggle. That's why so many women subconsciously choose men who are beneath them in ambition because they can control them. It's because they're grateful just to be there. The mediocre man doesn't make waves. He doesn't need long silences to think. He doesn't disappear for days into obsession. He doesn't sacrifice the present for a future only he can see. No, he's safe, predictable, easy to understand, and to be the center of his world. That's intoxicating. But for the man chasing greatness, that kind of devotion is rare, almost impossible, because he doesn't orbit her, he ascends. And in doing so, he shakes the very foundation of what most relationships are built on: comfort. Napoleon lived this contradiction every day. The man who could move nations was still criticized for being emotionally distant, too focused, too cold. But tell me, how else do you build an empire? How else do you carve your name into history? You don't do it by whispering sweet nothings. You do it by becoming more than a man. And in that transformation, you stop being just a partner. You become a force. So let's be honest. Do you want comfort? Or do you want legacy? Because Napoleon already knew which one most people, most women choose. And it's not the one you think. Every man who's poured his soul into building something greater than himself knows this feeling. You give everything: your time, your energy, your focus, even your health to a vision. You come home expecting admiration, maybe even pride from the person you love. Instead, you get resentment, not because you failed, but because your very ambition makes them uncomfortable. Your focus feels like distance. Your confidence feels like arrogance. Your silence is mistaken for emotional absence. That's the price men like Napoleon pay. They're not born to coddle. They're born to lead, to forge, to dominate. And that kind of man rarely fits into the emotional script modern relationships demand. Now let's get one thing straight: Napoleon didn't hate women. Far from it. What he did was accept a truth most men spend their lives avoiding. What a woman says she wants is often very different from what she chooses. She might say she admires greatness, but when it comes time to commit, she marries convenience. She might praise ambition, but she builds her home with submission. And if you think love will somehow protect you from this reality, ask yourself this: why do so many brilliant, disciplined, self-made men get left by the very women who once swore they loved them? It's because love without understanding is like a countdown clock. You just don't know when it will hit zero. Most women don't truly understand what it costs a man to live with discipline. The years of ridicule. The nights staring at the ceiling while everyone else sleeps. The sacrifices that no one sees. They see the result of success, but not the war behind it. And when that war never ends, when you keep climbing instead of settling, they start to resent the fire they once admired. That's why Napoleon spoke about women with such coldness in his later years. Not because he was incapable of love, but because love could not keep pace with his destiny. When a man chooses destiny over domesticity, he must also choose loneliness. It's an ancient trade-off. Power or peace, but rarely both. You can have her heart, or you can have the world. You almost never get both. And the men who try to split the difference, they get ripped apart by it. So the great man walks alone, not because he wants solitude, but because he's outgrown what the world offers in exchange for his obedience. Napoleon didn't seek isolation. It found him. The higher he climbed, the fewer people could even breathe the same air. Women want to be seen, to be heard, to be held. But a man consumed by a mission? He doesn't have the time or the bandwidth to meet those needs on demand. He's not cold by nature. He's hardened by purpose. And this is the uncomfortable truth society doesn't like to admit. Most people, including most women, are terrified of truly great men. Not because they're cruel, but because they can't be owned. They can't be domesticated. You can't predict a man who serves something higher than love. And that unpredictability, that's what gets him labeled as toxic, unavailable, detached. He doesn't listen, they say. Of course he doesn't listen. He's busy making history. Napoleon was demonized for plenty of things. His ambition, his ego, his conquests. But the real reason he was resented, he refused to kneel. Not to tradition, not to comfort, not even to love. It's time. And his downfall was, in his power, it was the illusion that the people closest to him could ever truly understand it. Because in the end, even the emperor is abandoned by those he fought to protect. Even the lion dies alone. And here's the part no one likes to say out loud. A man has to choose. Build an empire or build a nest. One will give you a legacy. The other will give you warmth. But almost never both. Mediocre men are loved, praised, remembered as good men, but the great men, they're lonely, misunderstood, sometimes even hated. And yet they're the ones who carve their names into the bones of history. So if you're a man chasing greatness, you need to prepare yourself. Prepare to be unloved. Prepare to be doubted. Prepare to be left. Not because of your flaws, but because you're not safe. And that makes you dangerous. But here's the twist. Danger is exactly what the world ends up bowing to. Still, you might be wondering why. Why would someone turn away from a man who's disciplined, visionary, relentless, a man who moves mountains? The truth is uncomfortable. Great men are mirrors. They reflect everything that people around them are not. Your ambition will reveal their complacency. Your silence will highlight their insecurity. Your independence will expose their dependency. And for most people, men or women, that mirror is unbearable. Because to stand beside a man who needs nothing from you emotionally, who doesn't seek your approval, who's unafraid to walk alone, that's not romantic. That's terrifying. It means they can't control you. It can't soften you into submission. It can't hold you hostage with affection. They can only follow, or be left behind. And that's a gamble most won't take. I'll never say it outright, but many people choose relationships based on emotional leverage, not admiration. They choose someone they can mold, someone who will stop when they cry, someone who will pause his life when they doubt, someone who makes them the center of his world. But the man chasing greatness, he doesn't pause, doesn't orbit, builds, and he bleeds for it. The great man isn't heartless. His heart is simply disciplined. He's not incapable of love. Love just isn't his mission. And that's exactly what makes him unreachable for the average woman, because she's not looking to walk beside a titan. She's looking for someone who makes her feel safe, heard, and prioritized. That's the quiet truth behind why so many settle upward in appearance but downward in essence. He might look like a man, he might talk like a man, but inside, he's soft, clay molded by her moods, her needs, her worldview. And because he poses no threat to her comfort, he poses no threat at all. But here's the irony. She will never truly admire him. She may love him, she may cling to him, she may even marry him. But deep down, she knows she didn't choose a king. She chose a servant who looked like one. Use a man who won't kneel, who won't stop, who burns at 2 a.m. Working on something nobody else can see. You'll need to understand something. You were never rejected for your flaws. You were rejected for your fire, for the intensity of your soul, for the fact that being with you meant she would have to rise to match you. And most people simply want tea. They don't want to rise. They want to rest. So don't envy the mediocre man, to pity him. Because while he might be loved, he'll never be respected. He'll be tolerated. Used. Maybe even cherished in moments, but never truly followed. Because nothing about him leads. And as for you were never meant to be loved like everyone else. Your life is a storm, not a lullaby. Your path is steep, not soft. And your reward will never come from comfort. It will come from conquest. It's not conquest over others, but over yourself, over the loneliness, the doubt, the whispers telling you to give in and be what they want. Don't give in. Let her go. Let them go. Let go of the idea that you'll ever be fully understood. Because you weren't T-built for a woman, S comforts you. We're built for a man's purpose. Yes, it will cost you. You might walk alone. You might die. Misunderstood. But if you endure, if you stay the course, the world will not forget your name. Because in the end, no woman builds statues. No woman rewrites history. No woman leads armies into battle or drags a vision into reality. Men do, and they do it alone. Bleeding, focused, unloved, but unstoppable.
Stop asking yourself why she didn't choose you. You already know she didn't want greatness.
She wanted comfort. And you, my friend, are not comfort.
War. You are danger.
And the world still bows to danger. If this hit you harder than you expected, if it made you rethink everything you thought you knew about life, love, and what it really means to be a man, just scroll away quietly like the video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to go even deeper, join the channel as a member. Because truth, like greatness, isn't meant to be easy. It sure isn't meant to be cheap. It's meant to burn away the illusions and leave you staring at the world with new eyes. Cheers.